Hi, my name is Emma, aka midsummerknits, and welcome back to my channel. I make videos about knitting and fiber arts content, so you can feel free to check me out if you're interested in either of those things. Today's video is one that I am super excited for. I've been wanting to start up this series for quite a while, talking about the finances of people in fiber arts, specifically business owners and people who are trying to monetize their fiber arts. And this has been something that I feel like has been a bit of a black box for me in the past, just in terms of people who are actually doing fiber arts sort of as a full-time thing or even as a part-time thing and monetizing it. I feel like I just have never really had any idea of how much money people are able to make from their fiber arts businesses, and I've always been really curious how people are sort of able to make it work financially. So I wanted to make this series highlighting people's different experiences monetizing their fiber arts businesses and the different streams of income that people have, as well as how much they're sort of able to make, and just bringing a little bit of transparency to the finances of those situations. So first of all, I want to apologize for the lighting in this video. I am filming a lot earlier than I usually do, which has led to this sort of like window blind situation going on, but also throughout the video the lighting sort of changes and it's a little bit chaotic, so I do want to apologize that my lighting is not super great, but I think this video was a really cool conversation and I hope you guys will enjoy it. Just to introduce the guests that we have today, they've already been featured on my channel once, and I think you guys all know that I am good friends with them, but it is Emma from Made in the Moment, and I will let them introduce themselves and their business a little bit more, but I do just want to say that I think Emma is such an amazing person. They have a really big presence in the fiber arts community, and I think it's really cool to see all of the different ways that they are working on this fiber arts business. So they are a designer with both knit and crochet patterns, so I feel like they appeal to like a wide variety of people, and they also are super active on social media with Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and I feel like they're just a really big face of the fiber arts community. So I'm super honored to have them on today to talk about the finances of their business, and I'm super excited to start off this series. I do want to say I want to continue doing this series, so if you are watching this as a fiber artist who is making money off of their fiber arts business, I would love to talk to you about the finances of your business, and I do want to say that this video format is a bit flexible. You can reveal more or less depending on how much you're comfortable with, but if that is the case and you are interested in being featured on my channel, you can feel free to email me. I'll put my email on the screen. You can also DM me, but I will be a little bit less likely to see it. But if that's the case, I would love to talk to you about your fiber arts finances and your journey monetizing your fiber arts. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. So let's welcome Emma, aka Made in the Moment, back to my channel. Hey Emma, how's it going?
Hi, really good. It's good to be back.
Awesome. So I was thinking that we could start out by just talking a little bit about your business, how you started it, what the different aspects of your business are, and just get sort of a general overview for people who don't know you very well.
Sure, yeah. So I started my business in 2021. I kind of just started out crocheting during the pandemic because I needed something to do, like with my hands. And one of my friends owned an Etsy shop, and she had she had an Etsy shop, and she like made a bunch of like bandanas and little like keychains and kind of small things. And she was like, you should start crocheting. You can sell stuff on Etsy. I really like how, I like this, works really well for me. So I started following YouTube tutorials, and then eventually was like, oh, actually I want to do clothes, and actually I have ideas for things and I'm not seeing patterns for like exactly the thing that I have in my head. So after following patterns for a while, I realized that I could write them, and that's pretty much what my business was for, the first like year and a half, 2 years of doing it. And now I do a lot of content creation as well, which I started as a way to like promote the patterns, but then realized that I really liked all of the content creation aspect of things as well. So that's like pretty much what I do, is I split most of my time between like designing and writing patterns and then like making content.
Cool, very cool. And do you also do this full-time, or is this kind of a part-time gig for you?
Yeah, so it started off as a part-time gig as I was going through grad school, because when I moved to Boston, I was looking for jobs and trying to figure out what I was going to do for work during school, and it just happened that this business took off right at the point where I needed it to sort of support me through school, working part-time. But after graduating, I do this full-time now, which has been really fun and is just like it's so cool. This is like the best job that I could have never imagined was a job.
That's really awesome. Congratulations on doing this full time. I think that's a lot of fiber artists' dreams. So it's really cool to see someone succeeding at that.
It's really cool. I know I'm very lucky to get to do this.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, could you take us through a typical day in your life as a fiber artist since you are doing it full time?
Yeah, it's really like, it totally depends on the day and like what sort of things I have to get done. But I mostly work from home except when I like need to get out, and then I go to like a coffee shop or I go to like a friend's apartment and work there or something. But I think when I was doing this part-time, I spent a lot more time actually crocheting and knitting. And now there's just so many more like business computer things that have to happen. So a lot of my day is just like at the computer, answering emails or doing meetings or editing, writing things, writing patterns, all of that fun stuff. But yeah, I would say I somewhat try to stick to not even 9 to 5, maybe like a 10 to 7 sort of schedule. But it totally depends on the day and like what projects I want to do. So some days it's much more like I sit on the couch and I crochet for like 5 hours, and other days it's like I sit at my desk and I edit things on the computer for a while. But yeah, my schedule is pretty like flexible, you know, like some days I start early and end early, some days I start late and work late, some days I just like work all day, or some days I don't work at all. So it's nice to have flexibility depending on sort of what I'm in the mood to do for work. And then obviously some days I have to do things just because it's work and I have to do it. But it varies a lot, which makes it fun and keeps me entertained.
Totally, that makes sense. I think it's really nice to be in charge of your own schedule and to be able to have that flexibility. For my job, it's like definitely a very flexible 9 to 5, but it is like I have to work a certain number of hours in the week, so it is super nice that you can kind of dictate your entire day in terms of when you want to start working, when you want to stop, and what you want to do that day.
Yeah, it is nice. Like I definitely struggle with the stopping.
Yeah.
The stopping part of like I can get momentum sometimes, and then it's hard to give myself days off, or it's hard to feel like I should take time off because there's always more things to do and there's never really like an end point. So I try to sort of lump things in projects of like if I release a pattern, then I let myself take a little bit of a break after that, or if I put out a video that I've been spending a lot of time on, then I let myself feel that accomplishment and be like, all right, that thing is finished, and then tomorrow I'll start a new thing, but I can let myself enjoy that being done for one day.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So for the next part of this video, I wanted to get into the main topic for the video, which is talking about your different income streams as a fiber arts business owner. So I was thinking we could just start off by doing a quick introduction to your different income streams, just talk about what each one of them is, and then we can get into sort of how much you're making from each of them.
Sure, yeah. So the main sector for a while was the pattern sales, and I started off selling on Etsy, and then I pretty quickly decided that I also wanted to have my own website where I would have like more control of things. So those are my two biggest ones, Etsy and then my Shopify. And then I also have patterns on Ravelry, Ribbler, and some on Ko-fi, except I have not posted any new ones on there in a while. I just kind of keep the link up for people to go to. But I probably make like one sale every 2 months or something on there. And then the other part of it is like brand sponsorships, TikTok and Instagram money, you know, like all of those ad revenue systems. I have a Patreon and then my YouTube channels now.
So can you go into kind of a rough percentage-wise overview of how much you're making from each of these different income sources?
Yeah. So because my income is so different every month, I pulled basically data from 2 different months from this year. So I have my lowest earning month and then my highest earning month. And I'll just sort of go through the percentages of like what I made from each source. So I'll go through my lowest earning month first, which was February of this year. So in February, I earned 61% of my income from selling patterns. And then my Patreon was 2%, so like a very small amount. I made money from Instagram as well in February, which was like the Reels bonus thing that they got rid of like pretty shortly after that. And that was 12% of my total income. TikTok, I didn't make any money in February because I wasn't a part of the new creator fund yet. And then I made 18% from YouTube, 7% from commissions, so like actually making things and selling them to people, and then 0 from brand partnerships. And then in contrast, the highest earning month of this year so far, I earned 29% of my income from patterns. Patreon was less than 1%. Instagram was 0 because they got rid of the the Instagram Reels program. But then on the flip side, I earned 54% of my overall income from TikTok in that month. So, huge flip-flop there. And then that same month, I earned 6% from YouTube, 0 from commissions that month, and 1% from brand partnerships.
Okay, very interesting to see how these numbers differ from month to month. Maybe we can start going into each of these categories and talking about why you think that you made certain amounts from each category from month to month. So maybe we can start out with patterns and just talk about your thoughts around that.
Yeah, so the interesting thing with the patterns is that I actually make a very similar amount of money on patterns per month. Okay. So the reason for the big difference in percentages is just like based on what other things I made money around or made money from. So like just that month I happened to make a lot of money from TikTok, and so that like pushed that category way up in a way where like that doesn't usually happen, and I don't usually make 50% of my income from TikTok. So the patterns one, actually, like that number stays pretty consistent, and then everything else is sort of completely all over the place, which makes it hard to plan in some ways, but it is really nice to know that I do have like a pretty consistent stream of income from the patterns to sort of, I don't want to say fall back on, because my financial planning is more complex than just that, but it's nice to know that is consistent, and then as things change around, I can sort of be flexible. But yeah, in terms of everything else, it's kind of just, it's based on like what the algorithm likes that month, or like what happens to get engagement, or like what platforms are doing what in terms of the way they're monetizing things. And I think that's what makes it work well for me, because I have gotten very lucky and I am in the favor of algorithms on multiple platforms, which I know is not the case for everybody. And so that makes it possible for me when Instagram decides to shut down their monetization program or like switch to something else, it wasn't the only thing that I was relying on. And then like luckily for me, TikTok put up a monetization program kind of right after that also worked well for me. So I think it's being flexible and like knowing that things could change at any point, and also knowing that like no money that I have made in a past month is guaranteed for any month in the future.
Yeah, I guess that's the blessing and the curse of working in this industry. Just to go back to patterns really quickly, I actually am surprised, I guess, that you said your pattern income is the same from month to month. Just in terms of, I thought that seasonally maybe things would change. Maybe people would buy more patterns in the winter. But I guess that's not really the case. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, there obviously is like a variation, but I think because I have enough patterns that span enough seasons and like seasonal choices, people can choose from them sort of at any time. So it's like, all right, in the winter, they want to maybe make more of my winter designs, but then I have some like spring and summer things as well that sort of people are also interested in. And I definitely do think that in the fall and winter it picks up a little bit, but there's not as much of a like disparity as I would have expected to see.
Okay, interesting. And do you see like a disparity as well when you release a new pattern, or do you feel like it still kind of evens out overall?
Yeah, it sort of depends. I feel like there have been times where I've had really big pattern releases where like I release the pattern and then it gets a ton of traction right away and people buy it right away, and you know, that becomes a bigger chunk of the monthly income. But recently I've been releasing a pattern and then it kind of gets like a really slow start. It doesn't get a lot of traction right away, and the sales just come over a very like spread out period of time, which is almost better in a way, because then I know people are finding it and coming back to it or saving it and buying it when they, you know, want to start working on it or something. Because I wouldn't ever expect everyone to like just drop everything they're doing and buy a new pattern just because I released it, you know, on the day. So I think things have sort of evened out like that. And I also have really, really reduced the amount of patterns that I put out just because of all of the other things that I'm doing with like content and working on some other projects that take a little bit more time. At the beginning, I was releasing like a pattern every month, which I could not imagine doing anymore, you know, like doing multiple tester calls kind of back to back or overlapping.
Yeah, that's a crazy output.
Yeah. And I think part of it too is like, as I learned more about pattern writing and got more into like how customizable I wanted things to be with the made to measure, and really refining like the calculation portion of things and the math portion of things, like it takes so much more time to produce a pattern in the way that I want to now versus when I was starting out. I don't think my patterns are bad, but they're definitely much more simple, and don't have the same like level of detail that some of the ones I'm working on now do.
Right, that makes sense. Okay. Maybe we can talk also about YouTube, because I know, first of all, you have 2 YouTube channels, and I've been watching your second channel just completely blow up, which is so exciting. I think it is such a cool channel concept. Basically, to give a TLDR for anyone who doesn't know, Emma has a second channel called Emma in the Moment, where they talk about fiber arts related drama, and I think this is just a really cool concept, like taking the concept of sort of commentary channels and applying it more to the fiber arts world, and I haven't seen this done before. So yeah, both of those channels, I feel like I've watched your channels do really well and been really successful, and I feel like YouTube is also known for being kind of a more consistent stream of income versus Instagram and TikTok are kind of newer monetization programs and haven't really stabilized yet. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the income that you have from YouTube and get into that.
Yeah, so first of all, I'll say like I'll definitely have more to say about this in like 3 months once I really like know how things work month to month, because the second channel is really new still. I think I started it a little over 2 months ago now. So lots of things could change. The algorithm really likes my videos right now, so it's doing super well, but we'll sort of see as it stabilizes. But yeah, the money on YouTube is very good. For a while, it was very much like a secondary source of income where I was like, oh great, like an extra $150 a month kind of thing. And now I would say, like, if I were to give you percentage breakdowns for September, which I don't have off the top of my head, but I would say that YouTube is definitely like the majority of the income percentage now. And the way that it sort of works is you get ad revenue. So anytime you get like an ad before your video or an ad in the middle of the video, then a portion, I want to say 40% of it goes to the creator, or 60%. It's one of those. It's like 40 goes it's split between the creator and then like YouTube. So
yeah, I can
not all of that
fact check
goes
that,
right to
but yeah.
Yeah. Put it on the screen and fact check. I don't want to like say numbers that aren't true. And with like YouTube brand deals, I feel like there's a very established system in place of sort of how that works and how the integrations work in the videos. And I just started working with management on that. So that's nice that they are like handling all of the like nitty-gritty things to do with that. But yeah, it is definitely a much more established monetization system and platform than Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, totally. About brand partnerships, actually, subtle plug, we have an entire video talking about brand partnerships in the fiber arts sort of arena. So I will link to that in the cards if you guys want to check that out. Okay, sorry the lighting changed. I had to close my blinds because it was getting very bright in my apartment, so apologies about that. But I did want to talk about maybe some of your general thoughts about finances, especially as someone who kind of is really in control of your own finances and does not necessarily have a super steady stream of income.
Yeah, I think because everything is so up to the algorithm and so up to like everything can change. I've been trying to be really good about like being very aware of where I have money and what I have to pay and what my bills are and all of the aspects of my finances, and just looking at the numbers and like knowing my student loan debt and like knowing how much I have to pay for this thing and this thing, you know, obviously trying to like put things away and save money for if next month things are like not great, like I'll have some money to fall back on. And obviously like working for myself, I have to figure out a lot of things like retirement funds and you know, I'm gonna have to figure out health insurance soon and all these things that like if you work a 9-to-5 with like a corporate, you know, entity, you have a lot of these things figured out. So it's been a lot of like going out of my way to learn about things that I was never taught at any point in my life, because everyone just kind of assumed that I would figure it out and someone else would take care of it. So that's been definitely challenging, but also really empowering to realize that it's actually not that hard. And I'm for sure not an expert, and I would never like want to try and teach anybody anything that I have learned about it. But there are just like really good resources out there for like being aware of your financial situation as a whole and like planning for the future and things like that.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I would not really know where to start with any of that, I think, as someone who is lucky to have a corporate job. Now that we're getting towards the end of the video, there is sort of like a grand reveal that I wanted to do, which is essentially just talking about how much you made overall in a year from doing this fiber arts business.
Yeah, so I don't have the exact number.
Yeah.
I know I could find it in my taxes, but I didn't want to like pull up the exact number, so I'm gonna round a little bit. But last year I made around $40,000, and then after like expenses and stuff, it was like between 37, 38 like taxable income profits from the business. But that was with working like kind of part-time hours. Like I was a full-time grad student as well. So the numbers will definitely be different this year because I'm putting a lot more time into it, and you know, things are always shifting around. But that's sort of where I landed last year. So like a good income, but not like a crazy high amount of money, but especially for like pattern sales and making content online, it's like a very livable wage.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, especially doing it sort of as a part-time thing. I think that's really impressive. So congrats on that.
Yeah, thank you.
I also just wanted to get some of your general thoughts about doing fiber arts as a full-time business and sort of monetizing your hobby in that way, and how you felt about that within the past year or however long you've been sort of working towards monetizing this.
Yeah, I think it's hard, you know, like monetizing any hobby, but like especially fiber arts is really tricky. It's hard to monetize like the pattern sales. It's hard to monetize like the physical products that you make. I'm definitely like moving more towards like monetizing my content and then making stuff for myself a little bit more for fun. You know, like I'll still write patterns and things like that, but I also just miss making a project because I want to make it and not feeling like I have to write down every single step and do all of the work that goes into a pattern. So yeah, it is hard. I feel like I came into this from like a place of privilege where I was able to live rent-free with family for a year and save up money while I got ready to go to grad school. And so when I wanted to start this, I had a little bit of a cushion to, again, like give me some space and not have to immediately go and start a job once I moved. And that gave me the time that I needed to put into this. So I will say like there's definitely a lot of barriers to entry in a way where like you wouldn't necessarily think there would be, because it's like, yeah, everyone can crochet and everyone can post about it, but there's a lot of things like financial stability, of course, is a big one. And then also just like the algorithm favors certain things and it doesn't favor other things. And a lot of that is, there's a lot of problems with like the algorithm only picking like lighter skinned people or like smaller people or people that look a certain way or act a certain way or speak a certain way. So that seems like a tangent from your question, but I think all of that is very important to acknowledge of like, you have to be aware of all of this if you want to make monetizing fiber arts a very like serious thing that you do. It is an industry and it has its problems and its faults. And, you know, while it is a hobby, it also like can be a real job if you treat it like that and kind of if you get lucky.
Yeah, thank you for touching on that. I think that's very important to acknowledge. But I do also want to say that I think what you've done is really impressive, especially being sort of a social media first fiber arts personality. I feel like that is honestly very unprecedented. I haven't really seen people do that in the past, as in most people who are actually monetizing fiber arts are, you know, releasing patterns or maybe they have like a yarn brand. So I think it's really cool to see sort of maybe you leading this new era of people who are doing fiber arts, but in a way of putting social media first. And then, you know, obviously you're doing patterns as well, but I think it's just really cool to see. Yeah,
it's always a balance, and that's sort of my focus for right now, but we'll see sort of what happens. And yes, I am writing patterns. I am working on a lot of stuff that I am also not releasing right now. So I think, you know, people are getting some people are getting impatient, it feels. They're like, I want this pattern, I want this one. I'm like, I know, I'm working on things. I'm not working, I promise.
Definitely. And is there anything that you want to plug for the end of the video, like anything that you'd like people to check out? I know we've already talked about lots of aspects of your business, and I'll obviously link to all of your social media and everything, but just if you want to talk about anything specifically, then go for it.
Yeah, I mean, we already touched on this, but like my second channel, Emma in the Moment, that's been like, you know, it started out as a little passion project and now it has just been like, it's been so much fun. I get sent all these video ideas from people of like different dramas of the past and of like the present, of things they want me to look into. And it's really cool to have a space to get to talk about this and hopefully give people more context of like the history of sort of controversies and drama in the online craft space, because I think it's really interesting to look at and see all of the patterns and see how things are different and how things are similar and all of that. So yeah, and I'm working on some pretty long videos right now, so if you like listening to long videos while you craft, then definitely go check out that channel. That's sort of my biggest thing for now, but yeah. And then obviously if you want to follow me other places too, I make TikToks and post on Instagram and have another channel where I theoretically make tutorials, but I haven't made one in a while. But yeah.
Yeah, I've really been enjoying all of your content, but especially the Emma in the Moment content I think is so cool. So I'll have literally everything linked down below. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and talking to me about this stuff. I think this is just a really important conversation to be had around the finances of fiber arts, and I think it's super interesting to hear more about your business. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on. This is a really cool idea, and I look forward to seeing like who else you have on in this series.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So I do want to say a giant thank you to Emma from Made in the Moment once again for coming on my channel, talking to me about the finances of their business. I think it's really cool that they are willing to come on here and share their experiences, their numbers, and just, I think that's like a super valuable thing. So again, giant thank you to Emma, you are the best. If you guys liked this video, you can totally check out my channel and subscribe. This is my first video in this series, which I'm calling Fiber Arts Finances, but I am really hoping to do more of these in the future. So if you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. And you can also hit the bell icon to be notified about my future videos. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.